Have you ever heard a business owner say, I just try to break even so that I don't have to pay any taxes? And they think that it's like the best idea that's ever happened so that they don't pay taxes and that their tax liability is zero. I know you probably have heard that. Maybe that's you yourself. And I'm here to tell you today why that is a terrible idea. Okay? Why should you listen to me? My name is Smolinski. I am a CPA and I am a fractional CFO, and I work with small businesses and their finances every single day. And I have seen all sorts of business owners and all different philosophies on making profit versus not making profit and trying to pay as little to the IRS as possible. And I want to tell you today what I see about the businesses that do really well versus the businesses who are just trying to lower their tax liability. Okay, so if that sounds good, that's what we're gonna get into today. And I try not to get into videos where I rant. Like, I know that that's kind of a thing on YouTube sometimes, just get all like flustered and whatever. And there was a trend on TikTok for a little while where people would like hit the screen and kind of act like they were kind of hitting you on the head. I'm not gonna do that because this is a business channel and I'm trying to be professional here, but I do want to say that I am very passionate about the fact that businesses should earn a profit. We just did a video on the 5 jobs of profit and what that should do for you. But what I want to talk to you about today is this mindset that if we just don't make any profit in our business, then we don't have to pay taxes and somehow we're winning by doing that. I just want to say first that is a false idea, that there's nothing true about that being a winning scenario. And I want to tell you guys that, that somehow I think has kind of crept in. There's a lot of like legends and sort of, I don't know, like myths, I guess you could call them, that business owners listen to sometimes. And one of them is that you should, somehow reduce your earnings so that you don't have to pay enough taxes. And that's what rich people do. And I think this idea of like rich people don't pay a lot in taxes has extended to business owners' minds that like, well, a lot of rich people are business owners, so that must mean that they don't actually earn anything in their businesses, so they're not paying taxes. And that is absolutely false, okay? It is not true. Rich people are earning a lot of profit in their businesses so that they can go and take those distributions or those earnings or whatever it is and either buy more businesses or buy more assets that are going to help offset their tax liability in other ways, like rental properties or other investment strategies, okay? So rich people are rich not because they have made their business earnings zero, okay? And I want to make that super clear to you because there's just kind of this mindset that's for some reason that's a good thing. And I want to give you a case for why you should make a profit in your business. And number one is that we need to make profits in our business in order to be able to have extra earnings to reinvest and actually grow our businesses. So if you are always operating at a zero margin, that means that you're always just scraping by, that you're literally spending everything you make. And that doesn't create any kind of extra buffer to then reinvest into a business. Now, you could start taking out loans and leveraging other people's money, but then you have to make a profit in order to repay those loans. So that is not a good strategy overall. And I've seen some people try to do that before, and it does not bode well for them because then they're still trying to operate at a 0% profit, and then now they have loans that they have to pay back. And please refer to the previous video about the 5 jobs of profit to help understand why that is such a huge problem. If you don't have money to reinvest, you're not going to be able to grow your business. And if we are just trying to get rich here by being business owners, because if that's why you're trying to pay zero taxes and because you want to be rich, like that's not going to be a good strategy for you. You are going to end up in a bigger hole than you had before just by trying to go through the strategy. Okay. Now, the second reason that you should have profit in your business is that you need to be able to build up some savings, some cash savings in your business. You do not want to be running on empty if you're trying to run a organization, because what happens if a client doesn't pay you fast enough and payroll's coming up and you have zero extra money in the bank? If that's the case, you're going to be in a very, very stressful situation where you're going to have to go out and probably get a loan to be able to cover payroll. That is not what we want for you. We want you to be able to have excess cash, which is generated from profits, in order to be able to cover yourself in the business ups and downs. Like, we are in the beginning of a recession right now, basically, and having cash is going to be able to help when maybe no new sales are coming in and new contract renewals are not coming as you would like them to be. And you need to have time in order to get the business back up and running in the case of a recession. So you need to have cash for that. So we do need a profit because we need to be able to have some extra savings. Another reason, another case for profit, is that you might, as a business owner, want to eventually take some cash out of the business. Like, you've worked really hard and maybe you're paying yourself a really high wage, and that is how you are, maybe reducing the profit in your business by paying yourself on payroll a very high number, which is fine. It's one way to do it. You might be missing out on some tax savings in that way if you are an S-Corp owner, for example. But you might kind of be like, hey, I have a home project coming up. I've built this, multi-million-dollar business. I would like to be able to take some cash out of the business from my earnings that I've had over the years, to help pay for this construction that I'm doing at home. Because my business owner friend over here, they did that. They just took some money out of their business and they took a distribution. And I hate to break it to you, for the person who's been running on zero margin year over year over year, is you don't have retained earnings because you have zero profit. You've been showing zero profit year over year. So you're not going to have that cash, that retained profit in your business that you can go and pull from whenever you want to take a distribution. So if you ever want to pull some money out of your business, you're going to have left some money in your business at some point in time. And the way that you do that is by generating a profit. Another thing that I think is a case for profit is that it helps your business look more attractive if you ever want to sell it. So if you, for whatever reason, would like to exit your business eventually, most business owners that I talk to want to exit their business eventually and they want to sell it to somebody. A zero profit business that's been showing 0, 0, 0, 0, 0 or close to zero for years and years is not an attractive option. It does not look valuable to a potential buyer if you are never producing a profit. That is the number one thing that buyers are looking for, is they're looking for positive cash flow. And if you are just spending all your money and you're never actually creating positive cash flow, you might be able to sell your business, but it's going to be at a much lower valuation than a business that was operating positive cash flow and positive profits year over year over year over year. Okay? If you ever want to sell your business, do not follow this poor tax strategy. Another case for profit is that I see sometimes people leveraging their business and putting a bunch of personal expenses in their P&L so that they can lower their taxable income. But then they're like, that's okay because my personal stuff is being paid for by the business. I mean, I've literally seen groceries being put in and clothing, shopping being put in, personal vacations being put into a P&L. And, I don't want to just say don't do that because the IRS doesn't like that, but the IRS doesn't like that and don't do that. There has to be a more compelling reason, because I know a lot of people are not even caring about the IRS at this point. But the more compelling reason is that you are not getting an accurate picture of how your business truly operates when you're padding it with personal expenses. So if you are, putting in your home insurance and your business insurance in the same P&L, you're not giving a good, accurate picture of what it costs to actually run your business. And if you ever want to sell your business one day, or if you just want to understand your own numbers because you're trying to improve your business in some kind of way, if it's padded with personal expenses, you're not going to be able to get the insights that you need, okay? And it is illegal. That's not what the IRS wants you to do. Do not put your personal expenses in your business expenses, okay? Do not commingle. That's bad. And if you were to get audited in that situation, you had a bunch of personal expenses, those personal expenses would be pulled out, your tax liability would be recalculated, and then you would own penalties and interest on the amount that you never paid the IRS to begin with. So it is not an ideal situation to be in, okay? Another case for profit is that if you are always operating at a loss or at basically a break-even point, after a while, the IRS is going to say, is this even a business? And they're going to be questioning whether or not your business is a legitimate business or if it's considered a hobby, because hobby expenses are not tax deductible, but business expenses are. So if you're not actually looking like you're trying to make a profit at some point in time, then the IRS could come and say none of this is deductible. And so then you can be in a really difficult situation if you are getting to a place that your business is starting to look more like a hobby. And I'm just going to leave you with this last case for profit, and that is that when you have profit, you have choices. Because when you are bringing in profit, you have the option of, do I use this profit to reinvest into the business? Can I save this? Can I, hire more people to help me? Can I buy that piece of equipment that's really going to make our whole job easier? Can we buy a building? Can I take more money as an owner? There's going to be so many additional things that you can do with excess cash and excess profit. I want to say too that just because you're making money doesn't mean that the IRS is going to take all of it in tax payments. So let's say you made $1 million in profit and 40% of that had to go to taxes, which would be high, assuming you're not doing any kind of tax strategies. $1 million of profit, $400,000 of that goes to IRS. You still have $600,000 to do something with. Contrast that to operating at a zero margin, where you're just, you paid zero taxes, but you also don't have any excess. You don't have $600,000. I want you to think about, the upside of having the profit and not just focus on, oh my gosh, I can't believe I paid the IRS $50,000 or $100,000 or $400,000. I don't care, because if you're paying more taxes, that means you're making a lot of money. And I like that delta. I like the difference between the money you're making and the tax you're making. That's the amount of freedom that you have and the amount of flexibility that you have, that you can go and do something else with that money. And I like to grow businesses, and I like businesses to be financially sustainable. So I am trying to make a case for profit today. So if this has been helpful, please make sure you give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next video.